to bring back the YouTuber commentary a little bit because I've been wanting to do that forever. So we're going to talk about Foodie Beauty, aka Chantal Marie again. And if you don't know who she is, I made a video about her not that long ago because people were kind of upset that she was going to be potentially looking for a maid in Kuwait. People were upset because, well, Chantal is fat. But a lot of people like to get on Chantal for multiple reasons. One, because of her weight, and we're not going to talk about that. I don't care about that. I mean, the woman's got a lot of health problems, and I hope she gets well. But a lot of people mostly have issues with Chantal Marie, Foodie Beauty, because she's an abusive piece of work. And Chantal is someone who recently, maybe 2 years ago now, moved to Kuwait for a man, married him. Marriage may or may not be legitimate. Again, I don't care. Recently, as of the last 6 months, I want to say, she's been going back and forth between Kuwait and Canada. Probably a visa run. Again, don't care. She keeps saying that it's under the guise of one, she misses Canada or whatever. Also, there's been talk about because of her health, because summers in Kuwait are terrible. I don't necessarily know how the climate is over there. I know it gets hot. Now, I went back and forth between Charlotte and Toronto for a couple years, and Canada gets hot as well. And a lot of people were talking about Chantal and just her abusive tendencies and her manipulating her audience and stuff like that. There's been stuff about finances and asking for donations and things like that, which as a content creator this is how a lot of my income comes in. I'm not opposed to content creators being like, hey, if you want a tip, but Chantal is an interesting case. But I was watching about how she suddenly went back to Canada again for the second time in 6 months, and then she all of a sudden said again, after she said she was going to stay in Canada, all of a sudden she's going back to Kuwait apparently. Again, she can do what she wants, but it had me thinking about how my mother, my abusive mother, who, if you're new, grew up 3 decades and with that stuff, which is not uncommon with victims who are disabled. So it makes it more difficult to get out of that type of situation, at least long term. But finally got a chance, been talking about that, if you want to go around to some videos, gonna keep talking about it this month. And my mother was somebody who, she's from Germany, I'm from Germany. I was only living there for 1 year, I was a very tiny baby. But I've been back a few times, but she grew up there, right? But she ended up moving to the States, when we all moved over here, because my dad's American, he was in the army, that's why he was in Germany to begin with. But ever since then, ever since the abusive stuff started, she always was saying, well, first of all, she had a fetish for Middle Eastern men as well, and Middle Eastern countries. And then, so she would also always be screaming about how she was going to go here and there and da-da-da. Also, she would be screaming about how she wanted to go back to Germany all the time. She says, I'm going to go back to Germany. Moments where she also said that she was pregnant by some guy, and then, ma'am, I'm with you 24/7. You've never left the house. But in the more recent years, from, it was 2019 to 2021, I think 2021 is when she did eventually go back to Germany for 5 months. It's not exactly the same type of situation as Chantal, but this is what it reminded me of. Was it 2019, she booked a ticket because she had some savings. She booked a ticket, but she also didn't have all the money, so she wanted money from my dad, who gave her that money. So she booked a ticket, and then she canceled it eventually. She started having some reverse thing in her mind where she's screaming, panicking, crying. She doesn't want to leave. So she canceled it. And of course that comes with fees, I think. But she gets a lot of the money back, and so what does she do with that money? A couple months later, she's having a tantrum, and she's booking another flight from the same travel agency. And they're getting annoyed with her, but they're like, okay, whatever, you want to go back, cool. And then, so she books it again. And then, literally the next day, she's like, I want to go. I like it in the United States, even though I just spent the last, 30 years complaining about how I don't like it and whatever. Oh, she's canceling that again, and the agency was mad. And they charged her even more. But it was even more annoying because that was also my dad's money. And not all of it, but some of it, so she's gonna have to pay some of that back too. 3rd time's the charm, right? Was it 2021, I want to say. And one day, she was just having a tantrum. Again, this is not uncommon. She was always having tantrums, abusive, screaming, physical tantrums. And she was like, take me to the airport tomorrow. And so we went to the airport, but I think we had found a flight or whatever, but because it was COVID, there needed to be a test, and it had to be taken like 24 hours before. So we had to go do that, and we got the test, and then we had to try to we were finding a flight, right? And so I found a flight for her, and I even gave her some of my money because I was so tired of her. I said, girl, you want out? I will I will go into my savings. I will take whatever is the remainder of the ticket for you, if you will get the hell out. And so we got a ticket for the next 2 days, I can't remember exactly. And off she went to Germany, finally. After all these years of dealing with her physical, emotional, verbal, mental abuse, she finally went. But you know what she was doing? She was pulling a Chantal in ways. Literally, I'm waking up like at 2 a.m. and there's an email on my phone that says she's arrived, but she's been crying about how she wants to go back to the United States. She wants to go back to America, and she made a huge mistake coming here. That literally the second she got off the plane, it was being picked up. And so of course we had to spend, mostly it was me, all the burden was being put on me because my dad is an enabler and complicit in a lot of it. So all that emotional damage was mostly being put on me. And so for 5 months, I was saying constantly, no, we don't want her back here, right? I definitely don't want her back here. And she wanted to go. She can stay and y'all can put up with her. This was a family friend also emailing me because he was the only one that really knew any English. And then suddenly, 5 months later, what happens? I get an email saying, hey, guess what? She's on a plane back to America, and tough luck, we don't want her here either, so there you go. Not too long after, about 12 hours later, there is a woman on my doorstep, and I can't do anything about it because my name isn't on the lease, but hers and my dad's is, so legally she's allowed to come in. She did get banished to a hotel for a few days because emotions were tense. But yeah, that's what that reminded me of, and it's like, it made me wonder, is this common for abusive, narcissistic, I guess, people who live in multiple countries, or they grew up in one country and they moved to one, and now they're like, okay, I want to go back here, but then ended up going right back to the country they said that they didn't like or whatever. This video has no outline planned or anything. This is just another raw video because I can't imagine trying to outline stuff like this, at least talking about personal experiences and stuff like that. But yeah, this was something that I have been wanting to talk about. It was gonna be like a longer video, like a whole tell-all, but watching the moment where Chantal says, I'm going back to Kuwait, which again, she can do whatever she wants. And I was like, wow, I'm suddenly getting flashbacks to my mother about how, first of all, she wanted to go to these people that she has such a fetish for, which is not safe for those people, and then always talking about how she wanted to go back to her home country, also because of healthcare and whatever, but then at the same time being like, once she got back to Germany for those 5 months, she's suddenly claiming, you know, German healthcare is terrible or whatever. She tried to say that they didn't have like creams for when you itch. Ma'am, this is Germany. This isn't some desert or some forest snowed in at the very tip top of mountains in the middle of nowhere. Like, this is Germany, near Frankfurt. What are you talking about? Now, I can't say much for the healthcare in itself, like dealing with, you know, the hospital and wait times. I know in Toronto, because I, you know, used to live, quote, stay there for extended periods of time because my ex lived there. And so I would go over there. You know, wait times and stuff happen. So it's kind of like you win some, you lose some. You don't have to pay $1,000 all the time for an ambulance, but sometimes there's wait times that are much longer than you would prefer or have to actually experience in the US. I don't know. Even that, I just remembered that part actually when Chantal was talking about how she can't get healthcare in Kuwait, she can't get healthcare in Canada, but if I recall, once you're out of Canada for a certain amount of time, you can't get that healthcare once you're back in Canada until you're there for like 3 months at a time, which now I'm wondering if that was the case for my mother, she's still a German citizen. All she has in the United States is her green card, but she still has her German passport. Maybe that's kind of the same, because isn't Canadian healthcare and German healthcare kind of similar in systems and how it's run? That's a genuine question, if anybody wants to answer that. So yeah, is this something that's common for abusive people who grew up in one country but then they moved to another, and then they're like threatening that they're gonna go here and there instead? And I don't know. Again, I don't know where I'm going with this, but thank you for listening. You know what? I appreciate it, because it is Child Abuse Awareness Month, and seeing all these perks in buildings, establishments have those plastic windmill flower things, those blue ones that they put up to, you know, try to be supportive of us. It's cute, but at the same time, I'm just like, there needs to be more done than that. So that's why it's been almost a year since I've been out, and hopefully can continue to stay out. I have another video about that's talking about that stress and struggle, either before or after this one, I'm not sure. And so I'm trying to spend this month talking about it more in video, and writing about it more, and writing a book that I need to finish. And so this might be off the wall. It's just extremely casual, and it's like we're having a one-on-one conversation on FaceTime or something. Zoom. So yeah, I just want to talk about that again. And if you made it here, thank you. Yeah, if you would like to support the work that I do, and I will have more content about like this there for as low as $1 a month. Although the higher you go, the more perks that you get. I have a Patreon page, and I'll have that link down below. But also for extra video a month, if you instead prefer to be a channel member, because then there's more video content, whereas I don't put extra video content on Patreon. You can also consider doing that. Or if you cannot do commitment, which is fine, we're all struggling, there's a super thanks down here that is like YouTube's tip jar, and anything's appreciated. Subscribe if you have not yet, because we're going to talk more about this. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to me ramble. I'll see you later. Bye.